The call came on a Wednesday, from a man Dale had never spoken to before. His name was Thomas Stills, and he was polite, too polite, the way people are when they are trying not to accuse you of something yet. He asked about a package. A monthly package, he said, addressed to a Karen Stills at 14 Birch Road. 67 of them, over 5.5 years. None of them had ever been returned. None of them had ever been delivered. He wanted to know where they had gone. Dale held the phone with both hands and said he would need to look into it. Dale Pryor had worked the Merritt Falls post office for 23 years. He knew every resident on every route, who had dogs that barked and who had dogs that bit, which families had let their magazine subscriptions lapse, whose medication refills arrived like clockwork on the 7th of every month. He knew the inside of this town the way a surgeon knows anatomy, not because he was curious, but because the job had required it of him for over 2 decades. He had delivered to 14 Birch Road for 11 of those 23 years. The woman who lived there, Karen Stills, was quiet and organized, the kind of person who left her outgoing mail rubber banded and in the box before 8 in the morning. He had never had a conversation with her that lasted longer than 30 seconds. But he remembered the day she left. It was a Thursday in March, gray and cold, still weeks from anything that felt like spring. A taxi came while he was still on the block. He watched Karen come out the front door with one bag, a single roller bag, the small kind you take on a short flight. She did not lock the house. She did not look around. She got into the cab without speaking to the driver, and the cab pulled away. He stood on the sidewalk with her neighbor's mail in his hand and watched until the cab turned the corner and disappeared. 3 weeks later, a man came into the post office asking about her. He introduced himself as Thomas Stills, her husband, he said, though the word had a practiced sound to it, like something he had decided in advance to claim. He asked if Karen had filed a forwarding address. Dale told him that was not information they could share. The man thanked him and left. Dale watched him through the window as he walked back to his car, turning once to look at the front of the building before he drove away. The packages started arriving 4 months after that. The first one came in July. Brown paper, postal tape, careful handwriting. Return address: Thomas Stills, 44 Crestwood Avenue, Harmon, Ohio. Addressed to Karen Stills, 14 Birch Road. The house had been empty since March. There was no forwarding address on file. The rule was straightforward: no forwarding address, no resident, return to sender. Dale had followed that rule thousands of times without thinking about it. He stood at the sorting table with the package in both hands for a long time, and then he set it on a shelf in the back room and told himself he would sort it out the following week. The following week, another one arrived. He had been thinking about the man who had come into the post office, the way his eyes moved when he spoke, not with grief or worry but with something more deliberate, the careful attention of a person scanning while appearing not to. He had been thinking about Karen with her one bag and her unlocked door. He put the 2 images side by side in his mind and did not produce proof of anything. He produced a feeling. He found an old mail forward request Karen had filed years before, a temporary route to a post office box in a town called Millhaven, 40 miles away. The box had been closed for 2 years, but it still had a number. He used it as a routing destination and sent both packages there, knowing they would be held and eventually returned to Merritt Falls as undeliverable. They came back. He put them in a box in the back room and told himself this was temporary. Month 3, month 4, month 5, each time, he had a brief conversation with himself, and each time it ended the same way. He did not know where Karen was. He did not know what the packages contained. He knew only that a man who had spent 3 weeks asking questions about a woman who had left without a trace was now sending her something every single month, and that even a routine failed delivery response would tell the sender the address was cold and give him reason to search differently. He stopped asking himself the question somewhere around month 8. He simply did it. He developed a routine. The package arrived on or around the 15th. He sorted it aside, logged it to the Millhaven address, moved it to the back room. Some months it came late, and he would notice. He would check his calendar when the 15th passed without a delivery and feel something close to unease, a restlessness he recognized as waiting. Then the package would arrive on the 18th or 19th and the routine would resume and the feeling would pass. He almost came clean twice. The first time was in the second year, during a routine audit by a new supervisor named Renata. She was thorough, the kind of examiner who moves a finger down each line of the outgoing ledger before asking her questions. Dale stood beside the log with his hands very still while she worked through the Millhaven routing entries. She did not flag them. She moved on. He did not sleep easily for the week that followed. The second time was in year 4, when a surge of holiday parcels filled the back room past capacity and Dale had to move the accumulated returned packages to a storage unit he rented with his own money, $7 a month, 3 miles from the post office. He stood in the unit with 38 identical brown packages stacked in a column and thought with complete clarity, "This has to end." He held that thought all the way back to his car. Then he drove to work and did not end it. By then, he had built his reasoning into something he could stand on. Karen had chosen to disappear. She had made that choice deliberately, without leaving a trace. Whatever she was protecting herself from, a return receipt would tell the sender the address was no longer active and might prompt a harder search. Dale was not stealing her mail. He was not opening it. He was, in the version of the story he had been refining for years, holding a line she had drawn herself. He had never opened one of the packages. Once, in year 3, he had pressed the sides of one with his fingertips and felt through the brown paper what might have been folded sheets and something flat and rigid, possibly a photograph or a card. He set it down and did not do it again. In the 3rd year, a young couple bought the house at 14 Birch Road. They came to the post office to set up their box. Dale processed their paperwork and told them there was no held mail under the previous occupant's name. He watched them leave and then returned to the sorting room, where that month's package was waiting. It was still addressed to Karen Stills. The sender had not updated the address. He was still sending to a house where someone else now lived, to a woman he could not have confirmed was there. Dale held the package and thought, "This person is not checking." Then he routed it to Millhaven and went back to work. 2 years in, he had heard something that seemed to settle the matter. A woman at the hardware store mentioned Karen's name in passing, said she had heard that Karen had remarried, that she was somewhere out west now, doing fine by all accounts. The woman said it the way people say things about a neighbor who survived something, with quiet satisfaction, the kind that closes a subject. Dale drove back to the post office with a feeling he recognized as relief. Karen was gone, Karen was well, and a man sending packages to an empty address was sending them into nothing. He did not pause to ask who Thomas Stills actually was to Karen, whether the name on the return address meant what he had assumed it meant, or something different. He had a name, and the name matched the man at the counter, and he had constructed a case around it and lived inside it for years. In the 5th year, the packages changed. The handwriting on the labels, always neat, always deliberate, began to waver. Letters that had been cleanly formed grew uncertain at their edges. In month 59, the label was printed rather than written. The tape on one end applied unevenly, slightly lifted at a corner. Some packages were lighter than the ones before. Once, the shape was irregular in a way he had not seen before, as if the contents had been packed by hands that were no longer working as they once had. Dale noticed all of it and did not let himself form the thought that followed naturally from it. He sent each one to Millhaven. He did the math once, sitting in the storage unit on a folding chair he had bought for the purpose. The unit cost $84 a year. He had been doing this for 4 years and 3 months. He had spent $357 of his own money to store packages that were not his to hold and that he had no clear plan to return. He sat with that number for a while. Then he drove back to the post office. The 67th arrived in March. Lightest yet, the tape on one corner barely held. He pressed it down with his thumb and sent it through. Month 68, nothing came. The 15th passed, then the 20th, then April ended. He told himself the situation had resolved in some way he would never know about, that this was probably a good outcome, that whatever had been driving those packages had simply stopped. He had almost convinced himself. Then the phone rang. Thomas Stills on the phone spoke the way someone speaks when they have had weeks to decide what to ask. He said his mother's name was Edith Crane, née Stills, Karen's older sister. He said they had been estranged for 11 years, over something he described carefully as a misunderstanding that had never been corrected. In the last 2 years, as his mother's health declined, Edith had wanted to write. She had started with a letter, just a letter, to let Karen know she was thinking of her. Then a second one, then photographs. The two of them as children, one from their parents' house, one from a summer Dale could only guess at. Then, in one package, a small pendant on a thin chain, something Karen had given Edith when they were both in their 20s, which Edith had decided she wanted to return. She thought Karen should have it back. Thomas had been managing the postage himself because his mother's hands were no longer reliable. He had written the address labels in the early months, then switched to printed ones when her handwriting became too unsteady to read. He had been sending to 14 Birch Road because that was the address his mother gave him, and no one had told him it was wrong. Edith had died 6 weeks ago. Thomas said he was not calling to cause trouble. He thought perhaps the packages had simply been lost, that Karen had moved, that there was a reasonable explanation. He just wanted to know if there was a record. His mother had hoped Karen would write back. She had talked about it, he said, until near the end. Dale put the phone down after the call with his hand still resting on the receiver. He sat for a long time. He thought about 67 packages from an old woman to the sister she had not spoken to in 11 years. He thought about letters and photographs and a pendant on a chain. He thought about the word he had used for what he was doing, the word he had said to himself in the storage unit and on the drive home and in the sorting room on the 15th of each month for 5.5 years. Protection. He thought about that word for a while. He spent the rest of the afternoon on the phone. By evening, he had a name and a number. Karen had remarried. She was living in a town called Sutter, 3 states away, listed under a new last name. He sat with the number for 2 hours. Then he dialed. She answered on the 3rd ring. He told her who he was. He told her all of it, the post office, the packages, the routing to the dead Millhaven address, the storage unit with its column of brown parcels, every month for 67 months. He told her about Thomas. He told her about Edith. He told her about the pendant. She was quiet for a long time. Then she said she hadn't known. She said she had spent years wondering whether Edith would ever reach out and telling herself it no longer mattered, that the distance had become the shape of things and there was nothing useful in wishing it otherwise. She described the estrangement the way people describe something they have carried so long they have forgotten the original weight of it, as something old, shapeless, over something she called stupid now, which she did not explain further. She asked if Dale still had the packages. He said yes. She gave him an address. She did not ask him to explain himself further, or to justify what he had done, or to tell her more than she had already heard. She said she would wait for them. Then she said goodbye. The packages left the storage unit the following week. He sent them in batches, 7 at a time, carefully retaped and relabeled, over 9 days. In the first batch he included a single typed note. He apologized for what he had done. He tried not to frame it as a well-intentioned mistake, because he had come to understand that framing it that way would be for his benefit, not hers. He said only that he was sorry, and that he had been wrong, and that he hoped she would find something in the packages worth having. He does not know what she found inside them. He does not know whether she opened them in order, or all at once, or whether she was able to open them at all. He does not know what the letters said, or whether the pendant was still on its chain after 67 months in a cardboard box in a rented room 3 miles from the post office. He has been at this post office for 28 years. He still knows every route, every name, every rhythm of every household on every block. He still follows the rule: no forwarding address, no resident, return to sender. Some things are not his to know.